All right, let's look at this next one as well. So this is example 615, reference and value parameters. Oh, there's a comment here, it makes you think. So hopefully we can think. All right. And again, like with the other one, I might shorten the output lines just a little bit just to save space. I hope I don't run out of space on my little screen. All right, so what do we have here? So we've got the main function, then we've got three different functions: add first, add first, double first, and square first. Okay. And notice with this example, each one has two parameters. Add first has two reference parameters. Double first has two value parameters. Square first has a reference and a value parameter. Okay. So let's see what the output is and what's what and where. Okay. So back in main, we've got our main function. And we've got num has a value of 5. Okay, and so there in line 16 is going to output stuff, right? So what is it going to output? There's not much, that's not all that interesting. So it's just going to output line 9 colon inside main num equal, and then the value of num, which is 5. Right. Okay, and then they call add first. Okay, so we're going to skip down to add first, and we're going to send in num and num. So you can do that. You can send in the same parameter, same thing twice. But let's see what effect it has. So this might get kind of weird because both of those are by reference, aren't they? So we're sending num and num. So let's see what happens. Like I said, I haven't done this one before. So this is add first. So inside this function, we have two parameters, first and second. Okay. But they're both by reference, right? So they're going to refer back to something. What do they refer back to? Well, we send in num twice. I don't know if I've ever tried to do this. So they're both going to refer back to num, right? Let's see. So maybe this is why it makes us think. And so down in line 36, that output line, what's it going to output there? Line 20, inside add first. First is equal to 5, right? It refers back. Second is equal to 5. Like that. All right, so line 39, first is equal to first plus second. I'm sorry, first is equal to first plus 2. So that's adding 2 to first and assigning it back to itself, right? So first is referring back to num, which is 5. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And when I change first, it's going to change num back in main to 7. So in line 41, what's it going to output? Line 41, line 22. Oh, okay. They just got them numbered there. Line 22 inside. Add first. First is equal to, and what do we have on the diagram? 7. And second is equal to, it's referring back to the same spot, right? The same memory location. So even though technically I didn't change second, when I changed first, it changed that same memory location. So I'm thinking it's going to output 7 as well. We'll see if we're right. And then the next thing is line 44. So they do something similar, right? Second is equal to second times 2. So second, which is now 7, times 2 is 14. And so when I change second to 14, it's changing num back over here in main to 14. And then we output that, right? Line 24 inside add first. First is equal to, what is it? 14, right? So I changed it. And second is equal to 14 as well. Cool, I'm doing this right. All right. So that's add first. That's the end of add first. So we skip back to where we were. And we do what? Oh, line 20 is where we were. So we're going to output line 11 inside main after add first. Num1 is what? You have 14. That's it. Cool. And then we call double first. And we send in num and num. Same thing, right? So we skip down to double first and let's see what double first does. Double first, they're both by value, right? There's no ampersands on that. So you have to be able to recognize that, hey, there's no ampersands, so these are by value. So in double first, I'll write it over here. In double first, what's going to happen? Oh, I've got 1 and 2, right? 2 parameters, 1 and 2. They're by value, so they get their own memory locations. 1, oh, we're sending the same thing in twice, right? Num, which was 14. So 1 gets a copy of that, which is 14, and so does 2. So they're both 14. And then I do some stuff. So in line 52, it's going to output line 28 inside double first. 1 is equal to 14. Two is equal to 14 as well. And then in line 55, they say 1 is equal to 1 times 2, right? So it's changing the copy. It doesn't have any effect on anything back in main. So 1, the variable 1 times 2 is 28, right? So updates that to 28. And they output that. They do a lot of outputting here. line 30 inside double first. 1 is equal to 28. And 2 is equal to, 2's still sitting there at 14, right? I didn't do anything to 2. Cool. And then in line 60, they say 2 is equal to 2 plus 2, right? The variable 2, not the number 2, right? So you've got the variable 2 plus the number 2. So the variable 2 is 14, so that just adds 2 to it. So it's 16. And then they output that. Line 32. Inside double first. 1 is equal to 28 still. 2 is equal to 16. And that's the end of double first. That's actually the end of the lifetime for 1 and 2 inside of double first, technically, right? They technically go away. But again, yeah, I don't think that's really at the heart of the question here. So we go back to where we were. So after we call double first and we output on line, my code line 24, but they're line 13, what they're calling line 13. Line 13, inside main, after double first, num is equal to what? Yeah, num's still sitting over there at 14. It had no effect on num at all because both parameters were passed by value. And then we're going to call square first and send in num and num as well. So in square first, we're going to skip down. And so here's square first. In square first, we've got ref and val. Ref and val. So ref is by reference, right? So it's going to refer back to num, because that's the parameter that I sent. But val gets a copy of it, right? Val is by value. There's no ampersand on that. So it gets a copy. And it's 14 at that point. So let's see what happens. And down here, it's going to output some stuff. Oops, sorry. Line 36. Inside square first. Ref equal. And then what is ref? It refers back. And so it's 14. And val equal, it's the copy, it's 14. Right? And then they say ref is equal to ref times ref. So ref, which refers back to num, is equal to 14 times 14. What is that? I don't know your squares. 196. Cool, that sounds right. I know 12 squared is 144, so 196, we'll say. So what does that do? When it changes ref, it changes num because it refers back, right, to 196. So there on that next output line, it's going to output line 38 inside square first. Ref is equal to what? 196. And val is still sitting there at 14. But then in line 60, my line 76, their line 39 over there, val is equal to val plus 2. Adds 2 to it. But again, it's adding to the copy, right? So val is now 16. And they just output those updated results. Line 40 inside square first. Ref is equal to 196. And val is equal to 16. And that's the end of square first. Technically, that's the end of the lifetime for val. And we skip back to where we were. Where were we? Up here in main. So we have one more line. The output line 15. Inside main after square first. Num is equal to, and then what is num at this point? It's 196. And that's the end of main. So let's run that and see if we're right. So does the official output match what we thought it would be? We got 5, 5, 7, 7, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 28, 14, 28, 16, 14, 14, 196, 14, 16, 196. There you go. Does everybody see how that works? It's pretty easy as long as you draw the diagram, right? If you don't draw the diagram, there are so many opportunities to mess it up and not remember what refers back to what. And on a question like this, if you had messed up somewhere early on, then it would possibly throw everything else off after that, right? Especially if it's something that affected num back in main. So does that make sense? So does everybody see kind of how value parameters work and reference parameters work? Value gets a copy, reference refers back to the parameter back in the calling function. All right. Very good. So that's that example. I thought those were worth looking at. So I'm going to stop this again.